crazy mother.
Welcome, everybody, to the NattFitness podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Natt, and we are joined here with an incredible guest. Now, before I get to my guest, I want to acknowledge you and thank you guys so much for coming, because if you believe in leveling up your life, if you believe in taking the next step in your fitness, in your health, and also if you believe in being able to push and assist others, then this is the platform and exactly how you can learn to do so. So it is my opportunity as well as privilege with my guests to be able to provide you guys with the tit for tat strategies on how to move yourself from point A, where you are, to point B, where exactly it is you're trying to go. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my guest. He is not only proven through his linear life and podcast with the 127 Fit podcast, to be exact, but also through his desire and deep passion for fitness, from bodybuilding to powerlifting to whatever it is, you name it, that anything is possible if you're willing to devote and dedicate your mind to it. So please help me in welcoming my guest today, Mr. Quinton Varce. Quinton, thank you so much for coming, man.
For sure, Nick. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, my man. You've been a guest on my podcast, so I'm excited to be a guest on your podcast and just chit chat and chop it up with you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It was a pleasure. For those of you who don't know, you guys may definitely go and connect with Quinton on the 127 Fit podcast, and you can definitely check out our interview, but we will come back to that. We'll have a chance to circle back. For those of you who also don't know, Quinton is quite the evangelist in fitness, and we're going to get an opportunity to learn a little bit about his story and really how God has worked in his life, and ultimately how he is able to incorporate faith and everything it is that he does. And so this will definitely be a message for you. But I highly am excited, Quinton, to just dig right on in, man. So we're going to start a little bit different with some of the other guests I've had. You know, we've kind of talked about the coronavirus, but we say that, as you know, we're kind of in quarantine right now. But at least here in Colorado, the stay-at-home order has been lifted, and we're starting to see that kind of happen. Different places, gyms are beginning to opening up. My gym is open up, but only for personal training, whereas I know that in other places, I think Wisconsin, they have gyms open and some restaurants are opening. And so I kind of want to start with that, because this has been a big week for everyone, not just here in America, but globally, and get the opportunity to first kind of, hit home with your idea about the coronavirus and how you have taken, and not just as a participant, but really from a third eye observing, what is your thought process really been when this first, came out and we were first faced with this position of having to stay at home and having to social distance ourselves?
For sure. That's a great question, Nick. So just kind of the way that I've approached the coronavirus and just kind of this whole time in history that we're living in is I'm a big believer in I control what I can control, and I can't control what I can't control. So one of my sayings is just take one step in the right direction, one day at a time. So it's like whatever I can control, kind of in my life and in my sphere. That's really what I focus on each day. And then whatever is uncontrollable, the coronavirus, whatever is going on, maybe personally with me, and things like that. I just kind of like, what? I can't do anything about it, really. I can't control anything. All I can do is control my actions and my words and my thoughts and how I'm going to live my life. Now, with that being said, specifically in terms of like the coronavirus, there are steps that we can take to protect other people, in terms of wearing masks and things like that. As soon as this whole coronavirus thing went down, I kind of said, you know what, and the whole fitness industry basically shut down. I said, hey, I'm going to go back to Iowa. I've got a nice little home gym here at my parents' house. And it's been a lot more chill in terms of the outbreak and the coronavirus here in Iowa. Iowa's been, gyms opened up, I think, here last week. Everything's basically opened back up here in Iowa. So I haven't had the personal experience in terms of Colorado and specifically Denver, the area that I was living in before the outbreak happened. But everything's been pretty mellow and chill here. But again, just taking it one day at a time, controlling what I can control, really letting go of what I can't control. Because, time is valuable, life is short. And I'm the type of person of like, I'm not going to allow negativity into my life. I'm not going to allow any drama into my life. I'm not going to allow things that I can't control to deter, what I want to do with my life to positively impact other people. So that's kind of my mindset all the time, but even maybe magnified within the pandemic and again, the time of history that we're living in is I control myself and what I can control and just let go of everything else.
It's very profound to hear that level of a detailed response and to really understand exactly how you're making the interpretation, right? Because the reality is, Quinton, it's a very proactive and it's a very dynamic approach that you have, but it's also very rare. I think when you look at the masses, whether you want to do that within a community, you want to look at a state, or you want to look at it, nationally or even globally, so many people get this shift in their mind and they become reactive, right? And so like you said, the fitness industry is shut down. You're a fitness professional. And this has happened not just in Colorado. You are very aware of the same people who were affected by this, but there's many other businesses, hair salons and cosmetic studios and all different businesses, right, that are shut down, and people are now in a position where they're worried and they have fear because this isn't something that they voluntarily signed up for. So explain to me how you're able to cultivate this mindset to not live behind fear when something like this happens, because the reality is, it's very easy, it's very understandable why so many people become fragile and then ultimately end up becoming very limited in their thinking because resources are low. So how did you cultivate a mindset, like you said, not just in a pandemic situation, but in life? Where did that come from?
For sure. So I've struggled with what I would say severe anxiety since I was a tween. I'd say probably about 12, 13 years old. The anxiety is something that really came to fruition in my life. And I've never taken medications or anything like that, but through the process of learning, how to manage, deal with, overcome that anxiety and some of the other internal struggles that I've had, that's really where I've really gained this mindset and this discipline and this focus of, just again, controlling what I can control and letting go of what I can't, control. Now, when it comes to fear, my perspective in terms of fear is that fear holds us back, right? Fear prevents us from stepping into our destiny. Fear prevents us from stepping into, our future and everything that I believe that God has set before us, right? So for me, in this process of learning how to deal with, manage, and overcome and break through my anxiety, a lot of the anxiety that I've experienced, and a lot of anxiety I believe that people deal with, it comes from fear. It comes from getting caught up in the future, worrying about the future, allowing fear of what could happen to hold them back in the present. So these are things that I can speak on because I deal with this every single day. So this mindset that I have and my approach to fear, I believe that fear is a mirage. I believe fear is something that is created within our mind to prevent us, again, to step into, our destiny, to step into what God has created us for. My faith is very important. I spend time in God's word in the Bible, and it talks about this fear. I believe fear comes from Satan. It comes from the enemy to prevent us to experience what God has for us as individuals and within communities, right? So in terms of fear, as I've understood my anxiety and it's really come from fear, and fear is a mirage. It's fake. It's not even a reality. It's something that we make up in our minds, right? So as I've learned about this, then what I've done as a human being, I've learned to, and it's not easy, but it takes, great discipline and focus and all that resolve. But I've learned to step into my anxiety. I've learned to step into my fears. And when you step into or lean into your anxiety and your fears and whatever's holding you back as a human being, that's when breakthrough, okay, that's when breakthrough can happen and does happen and will happen. So if I sit back and allow this anxiety and allow this fear to consume me, it literally, Nick, it will eat you alive. It will destroy you. Okay. But if you can, just stay focused and we'll probably get into this, but purpose, okay, is so very important as human beings. What is my purpose, Quinton? What is your purpose, Nick? As we understand what our purpose is, okay, there's going to be fear, there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be doubt and worry that comes in to hold us back, right? But if we know what our purpose is and we step into that, no matter what we're feeling, no matter what the fear is, the anxiety, as we step into our purpose, okay, once again, we break through that anxiety. We break through the fear, the worry, and the doubt. And once we get on the other side of all that, we realize, you know what? I'm a stronger person now. And whatever that was in the past, like I'm stronger, I'm better. And now, because I've experienced this breakthrough, I can go out into the world, walking in my purpose, serving others, loving others, and positively impacting the world. It's all about not allowing the fear to consume you, but it's all about attacking or leaning into or stepping into that fear and realizing that you have power over that fear. You have power over that anxiety. There's victory as you step into, as you lean into, as you attack, and the breakthrough occurs, and that's where the growth and maturity and the beauty of this life happens.
Well, I love what you're saying about the prosperity that comes as a result of stepping through the fear. You become more empowered, which is true, right? So, it's hard to know something until you know something.
Absolutely.
As you were saying, but when you're able to step through fear, albeit at work or in a relationship or with personal conflict, then you sort of have this different shift in paradigm about your capabilities or maybe how your efficacy in that particular situation. So that part makes sense. And I think, it's kind of like not being able to push up a weight, which we'll also talk about. If you're able to stay consistent and endure, then ultimately you're going to see that breakthrough, and then ultimately you become more capable. But I think what is very abstract is the actual initial point of stepping through fear, right? So you have that constant verbiage where you're talking about stepping into fear, stepping through fear, right? And I think if we make that like an analogy where you have this hot fire in your whole life, whether it's been observed, whether it's been witnessed, whether it's been, influenced by your immediate community or society, you shut up, you fold, avoid pain, right? And that's part of the human condition. Seek pleasure, avoid pain. Like that's our meat suit. Seek pleasure, avoid pain. So when conflict or adversity does come into mix, we're natural ways to pivot. And you're saying to go through this.
Yeah.
How can one person adopt enough courage to do it? Because really that's what you're talking about, Quinton. It's being not in the absence of fear, but it's being in the presence of fear and then doing it anyway. And it's such a unique concept. And I think that, it's one thing to be at bay, but when you're in a trench, you feel completely different, right? So how
Absolutely.
does a person use their heart, use their brain, use their resources to almost look at this situation and as a pawn, like a chess move, and maneuver as they see fit? How can one do that?
Yeah. So again, I'm always going to go back to my faith, because that's the foundation of my life. It's been the foundation of my life since I was a young kid. So, one of the scriptures says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, of love, and a sound mind." So just as I rest in God's word and I rest in God's power by his spirit, then I understand that through God, I have the strength, I have the fortitude, I have all the tools, all the resources, everything that I would need to overcome, to break through, to step into my destiny. I believe I have that, in God by the power of his Holy Spirit, right? So I can't answer that any other way because that's my own personal experience, right? I know that when I step outside of, what I believe God wants me to do, when I, am kind of like wandering and allow my heart to wander away from God and things like that, that's when there's even more of I would say a battle and a struggle, because I'm trying to do it in my own effort, in my own strength. And for me personally, that never works out. I always fall flat on my face and have to just figure things out. But again, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. So for myself, it's leaning into God. It's understanding that God has everything that I need. And as I just step into him, as I lean into him, walk in the power of his Spirit, then things are going to work out. Doesn't mean things are easy. Doesn't mean life is peachy. None of that. But I just know that God has me, and I rest in that.
So quintessentially, Quinton, when we're looking at this from people, whether they come from a faith background or a non-faith background, and whether that faith background is Christianity or something else, really it comes to this notion of you believe in a power above and beyond yourself, and
Correct.
You have to have that you can really tap into, because if you feel alone, right? Like if we feel like we're here by ourselves, we all know what that feeling is like if we're playing sports or if we're in business, and you're not having support, whether that be on the emotional level or monetary level, whatever that's coming through, psychological, we begin to have these feelings of self-loathing. And then that's again when that voice gets a little bit bigger about, the limitations, right? The limitations and limiting beliefs. And so I like what you're saying about that. I like what you're really expressing to people about with your fundamental relationship. And again, reinstating that it's not always going to be easy, right? Because especially in this day and age, whether we're aware of it or not, arbitrarily, we constantly lean on convenience, on speed, on applicability. And sometimes when those don't happen, our default is that code in your mind. And for you, I would say that you spend a lot of time cultivating that faith, almost like trying to germinate a plant and bring it up so that way it's stronger, because, in life, there is no stagnation. It's just progress, right. Progress. And so as you move forward, problems are just going to come, right? Like we know that that's a sign of life, but those are really disguised as opportunities. Okay. So Quinton, I love that. And thanks for that powerful shift. I want to get a chance right here to talk about something that I find very, very, very inspiring about you. And it is your devotion to people, in particular with their fitness and their health, right? And so, we'll get into the advocate of bodybuilding and powerlifting, and obviously, I'm sure your mentor Mark will come up about that. But before we get into your particular passion about how you got started in fitness, what makes you feel like you are willing to give your life to help other people in this notion? Why is that so important for you? Why is that so important for them? And the demographics, which we touched on, those two key demographics, both the youth and the elderly, why are those your calling and so important in your heart? And how has that been pulled in? Because you would think that, you're a huge natural bodybuilder and you're getting ready to go back into a preparation, and, you would naturally gravitate towards more of your community. And a lot of what you're doing is actually in the fitness community, but not in that demographic. Okay. So enlighten me.
For sure. So I had two amazing mentors growing up. Ralph Kroger, both of them passed away last year, but Ralph Kroger, he was a Mr. California, a Mr. Natural Universe. He opened up this little gym in my hometown of Cherokee, Iowa, called Victory Gym. And he really taught me how to lift weights. And the way that he taught me how to lift weights was, kind of like a bodybuilding way, right? My other mentor was a Vietnam veteran, and he taught me how to power lift, right? So between those two guys, I started lifting weights going into the summer of my fourth grade year. So at a very, very young age, I started lifting weights. I fell in love with it. I basically grew up in the gym, right? So the way that I look at it is that the gift of fitness was given to me as a youth, and now as an adult, I want to take that gift of fitness that was given to me as a youth and pass it on to the next generation. I went on and got my bachelor's degree in exercise science, and my whole dream when I was younger was I wanted to live in Southern California because that's where Venice Beach is and Muscle Beach and all that, right? The sunshine and cute girls and all that. That's what you saw in the magazines back in the day. I wanted to live in Southern California. I wanted to be a personal trainer, and I wanted to own my own gym. So I went to college, got my bachelor's degree in exercise science. That's what I was going to do. Now, life kind of took me a different direction in my 20s. We might get there later, but why I'm so passionate about fitness. Now, fitness is not just lifting weights, right? Fitness is not just bodybuilding. It's not just powerlifting. There's all kinds of fitness with underneath that umbrella, right? You've got the running, you've got the biking, you got the swimming, you got the hiking, you got the skiing, all the different things, right? So again, fitness, specifically lifting weights, but I like to use fitness just to pull in, the majority rather than the minority. I see that the gift of fitness was given to me as a youth. It radically changed my life. It's shaped who I am as a man today. It altered, I feel like the course of my life. And so how can I take that gift that was given to me and pass it on to the next generation, right? I have a very strong passion for youth, specifically youth that come from tough backgrounds. I spent most of my 20s in ministry working with Native Americans in South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I spent time in inner city Detroit as a camp counselor at the YMCA. So I know that for me, even though I grew up in an upper middle class home in a small town, had a great upbringing, I know how fitness changed my life. So I know that fitness is such a powerful tool for the human experience, especially for young kids, and even more, narrowed down kids that are coming from tough backgrounds. Now, as you mentioned, I have competed in drug-free bodybuilding and powerlifting, but I don't really train those type of people. When I was back in Colorado before the pandemic outbreak happened, I was in Littleton and I was personal training, and most of my clients, if not all of my clients, were seniors, right? Now, a year ago, if you said, hey, Q, you're going to be training people that are, 60 plus, your oldest client's going to be 88, and that's kind of just what you're going to be doing for personal training. I would have been like, I don't know about that. But you know what, Nick, I've really gained an amazing appreciation for this niche of human beings that I feel like are kind of forgotten, right? Everything when we get on social media, everything when we are kind of walking through life is, how good looking you are, how young you are. We're all trying to be younger and look better. And that's kind of what's fed to us from a very young age in the United States of America and generally speaking around the world. And I feel like in our culture here in the United States, as opposed to other cultures, we kind of just push the older people to the side. They retire, they kind of just go do their thing, and they're kind of forgotten. Especially, I feel like within the fitness industry, right? How many times you get on Instagram or Facebook or one of these social media platforms and see personal trainers, trying to, draw in senior clients? I don't think I've ever seen it, right? So as I've gone through this experience of training seniors, I've really gained this appreciation of, they've walked through life experiences that I have yet to walk through. And as I'm teaching them very basic and simple fitness concepts and philosophies and things like that to help them live, healthier, stronger, longer lives, they in turn, if I'm willing to listen, which this we'll probably get into this a little bit more with my podcast, but if I'm willing to listen as I'm teaching them, they're willing to teach me. They're sharing life stories, life experiences, talking about cruises they've been on and their grandkids and their kids and this and that. Man, I've just again gained such a heart of gratitude and a heart of appreciation for this section of people within our culture, seniors. And the thing is, Nick, is that I'm a very simple guy. I'm never going to be at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs training those type of athletes. My mind doesn't work that way. I'm just very simple. I like, and I think that's probably why I'm drawn to teaching kids fitness, is because it's basic and simple, right? Well, the other spectrum is keeping it very basic and simple for seniors, because most of the time they're limited in their range of motion and what they can do. So it's between youth and seniors. Kind of the connection is I get to be comfortable in the sense of like teaching them very basic, simple concepts of health, fitness, longevity, and things like that. And that's where I feel like my strong point is keeping things simple and basic. So there's this passion for the youth. I was a physical education teacher down in Colorado Springs for a couple of years. So I really was able to focus on fitness in terms of the youth. And I'll be getting into more of that, I believe, in the future. But I've really gained an interest and again, an appreciation and a passion to really focus on the seniors. I just finished up today actually writing a ebook for seniors, and both of my parents are in their mid to late 60s. So I just kind of have that own personal, I don't want to say agenda, but interest in helping my parents live longer and healthier and better. So why not kind of step into that for other people's parents, other people's grandparents? And so I just really see a huge opportunity for myself and other people within the fitness industry to really focus on seniors and try to give back to them, because they've really put in their time. These seniors, they kind of paved the way for us, right? So how can we really help them live their best years in their latter years? So, the mentorship when I was younger, the gift of fitness was given to me. I have a passion and desire to pass that gift of fitness on to the next generation, but I'm also gaining that interest and that passion to pass on that gift of fitness, to the seniors.
I love it. Quinton. I love that you put such a huge emphasis on these opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Because oftentimes they are forgotten. And, we always know we talk about, the youth being the future, right? The future. But I think perfect example when you're sitting there talking about fear, unless you're a parent and you're really, completely emulsified in your child and their upbringing and their livelihood and things like that, then you're not too really oriented towards going back and helping or being a mentor or explaining to people about fitness or nutrition or whatever it is that might happen, conflict resolution. A lot of the things that these kids, unfortunately, don't end up really learning or gravitating to because of the lack of exposure. And so I think that if you're going to talk about a brighter and better and more proactive and more intuitive future, a lot of that's going to start with what you do now. Now, the other side of what you're saying, which is really unique, is about seniors, right? And oftentimes, like you said, these are the people who raised us, who brought us up. When I say us, I really mean those Generation X, millennials, and the Zs and everyone to come. And, these baby boomers and older are sort of in this precipice where, like you said, they're the quote unquote, your life is ending and you're going to, make room and just don't get in the way or go do your shopping. I think the reality that we all forget sometimes is that we're all going to age, right? Because we don't want to die tomorrow. And so naturally, as we begin to move through middle adulthood into, being seniors and that latter half, as you were saying, we don't want to be forgotten. I know how I would feel in my generation as a whole, but especially as an individual, what that's like. And I think if you're able to go and not just emotionally and psychologically connect or even spiritually, but physically, you extend the longevity, but not just the longevity of the physical body, but also the passion and desire to have a higher quality of life. And at the end of the day, what point is there in living if emotionally you don't feel like you want to, and you just have, minimal, everything is the half empty or on its way out. And so I think that, the world needs a lot more individuals like yourself making an impact in the way that they are, whatever or however that's actually happening. Okay. So I definitely like that, Quinton. I want to shift gears and make sure that we're able to cover a little bit about yourself, right? So we had this conversation about your two mentors, one that taught you powerlifting, the other one that really taught you the formalized hypertrophy training, which now, has made you the bodybuilder. You're quite the drug-free athlete, drug-free for life. And, you got into bodybuilding. And the thing that I will definitely also drop into this question that I'm getting ready to ask is that bodybuilding is difficult, right? It's one thing, regardless of what perspective you're in, looking out, whether it's this angle, or this angle. But once you're in and you've taken that commitment and you begin to daily make the sacrifices, especially up front for things that you're hopeful for and intentional about in the future, it gets hard because it's not just about weights and shakes and going to the gym and pumping. That's honestly, in my opinion, the easier part. Getting into bodybuilding is such a chess match because you have this volatility of emotion pulling you in one direction, being able to build your body, having the shift of your metabolism and how you feel, and also dealing with injuries. I mean, there's a multitude of different things that come into perspective when we're talking about bodybuilding. Okay, so talk to me about how you were able to cultivate the passion and why bodybuilding when obviously you powerlift, obviously you've done Spartan races and had such a very vivid exposure to fitness.
Yeah. So the one word answer for me in terms of bodybuilding is lifestyle. Bodybuilding is a lifestyle. It's not easy. It's very difficult. It takes time. It takes patience. So again, kind of going back to, when I talked about stepping into things, leaning into things so that there's breakthrough, I know in terms of the human experience, it is very important for us human beings to force ourselves, okay, into the difficult, into the hard, right? You referred earlier, Nick, to, how we kind of just, naturally, tend to be drawn to ease, right? And comfort. However, whatever you believe in, creation, evolution, whatever all that is, we have evolved as human beings, okay, to try to protect ourselves, right? And so our minds crave ease and comfort. Our mind controls our body. Our mind controls our whole human being, right? So I know that if I pursue comfortable, then I will not reach my full potential as a human being. And so, in terms of bodybuilding, again, going back to that word, it's lifestyle, right? And it's not easy, lifting weights and doing the progressive overload and what it takes to build muscle. Building muscle, our bodies have not, evolved, or were not created, for hypertrophy and to put on muscle. Like we naturally aren't just like, now some people have more genetics in terms of being genetically disposed to, like, being able to put on muscle easier, things like that, right? But actually building muscle and putting on muscle is not something we are naturally evolved for. So I love the lifestyle. I love the pursuit of the uncomfortable and the difficult. I love the challenge of, today I don't feel like, Nick, going to the gym and working out. And then tomorrow I don't feel like going to the gym and working out. Actually, this whole month, I haven't felt like going to the gym or stepping into my home gym and working out. But guess what? I know that there are going to be rewards. There's going to be positives. There's going to be something beautiful at the end of this pursuit as I continue to pursue the difficult, pursue the hard. So bodybuilding and lifting weights is a great way for me to challenge myself daily, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of it in terms of being a human being, right? Because bodybuilding, okay, sculpting your body in a specific way, trying to put on muscle, it's not easy. It's hard, okay? And it's I think the greatest lesson learned for me up to this point, in terms of the bodybuilding lifestyle, is that it's all about consistency, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? And you referred earlier, Nick, again, to just kind of how our culture is, and we want it our way right now. Well, guess what? Bodybuilding, again, going back to, it's a lifestyle, and it takes time, right?
Long time. Long time.
And so that's the beauty within specifically bodybuilding, is that it takes time. It's a grind, but at the end of the day, there's this reward. There's this there's this victory in terms of I put all of this into being able to step on stage and present myself to other people. And I think for me, a big draw too, Nick, when I was younger and still to this day, first of all, I like to look good, right? I mean, when I work out and I know that 99.9% of people don't look like I do, that makes me feel good. That gives me confidence in life and all aspects of my human experience. But the thing is that, there's something about bodybuilding and this strength training in terms of I feel like it really gives me an edge in life, right? And what I mean in terms of giving me an edge is again, I know that 99.9% of people aren't living this life. They're not willing to go through the process of putting on the muscle, and then the actual process of going through a prep and stepping on stage. So there's this edge that I feel like I have. Not that I'm better than anybody, but there's just this edge in life of hey, I'm doing things that I know other people aren't. So again, it kind of ties into that confidence, that edge. But to kind of just fully wrap it up, again, bodybuilding is a lifestyle, and you commit to that lifestyle, and there is this beauty at the end, because again, life is all about experiences. And as we experience life, as I experience life kind of through the lens of a bodybuilder, it just really gives me so much to be able to give other people.
No, man, you're listen, the part where you were talking about, as our society, wanting things fast, the biggest dose of humble sauce that I think anybody will ever walk through in life, in the event that they not only just make the decision, but actually commit through the end of a show, is that there is no gratification comes after hard sacrifice, after compromise, and nothing. Consistency is probably the common denominator, but the second one underneath that is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's so profound that you say that as a lifestyle, because voluntarily you're signing up to put yourself in such a position where you're saying, I will delay. These things I want them in abundance, but I know that that's going to take a significantly longer time, whether that be the physical. And so I like all of that. And again, we could go on and on. I don't want to skip over that because it's important. So I wanted to bring that up. But I think what I gravitated towards, and I think what I really want to plant the seed in whoever's listening, is really what you were talking about with what I classify as leverage. And it's stepping into this level of uncomfortability, right? So we all know that, like you said, Quinton, in order to be able to achieve speed, weight loss, increase, expansion of the fascia, and eventually growth in the muscle, we have to put in hard work. When we go to school, we have to study. you got to sit down and you got to read the book, and then your eyes hurt and you got to get up and you got to come back, and it's like monotonous and redundant. We'd rather be outside, or we'd rather be watching TV or playing video games, right? So we all have these things. So it's not that we don't know as people at any age that to get something worth having takes compromise and sacrifice. But again, a lot like our conversation, earlier, stepping into the fire, right? And having the courage. It's having the courage and face of fear to do something. Well, with bodybuilding, it's even, in my opinion, more gratifying because you're not necessarily having this like inferno, you know what I mean? Like this is a bridge and you're having to cross that because there's this like inferno. You have leverage. Scary to cross the creaky bridge, but better than being burned, right? Well, with bodybuilding, it's like, oh, well, you can just have the lifestyle. And again, I say that, and I know you can understand, Quinton. That's not a pour or a point or a look down because you're better than somebody, or because you don't drink, or because you don't do drugs, right? Or that you don't eat macaroni and cheese. It's not what it's about. But I'm saying is that when you can make the decision to say all these things I generally do want, like, truth be told, no one likes donuts more than I do. I'm convinced. Like, it doesn't matter. Krispy Kreme, Winchell's, Dunkin' Donuts. I will crush donuts. I love them, right?
Yep.
But I don't just hoard those donuts and make that decision to eat because of many reasons. I know my family's history, and so epigenetics and these different laws when it comes to the genome and how that's expressed in the phenotype. I'm very conscientious of that because I don't want to die of either certain types of cancers or most likely type 2 diabetes, which is pretty much what ends up, or COPD, which is pretty much what's happened on my dad's side of the family and in other parts, not only within my family, but also within Black culture. And so I think about that, and I'm mindful of that, and I know that it's going to take actions, like you said, Quinton. But on the other side, I also know that there's these things I want to go in life, and if you're going to innovate yourself, it's going to require you to step up. And the monotony, the redundancy every single day of eating the same thing, the same bowl of rice, the same bowl of oatmeal, the same broccoli and the chicken and the dishes and the Tupperware. And like you said, waking up and doing weights, like you said, Quinton, you don't want to go in. I think that's the misconception. People are like, oh, you probably sleep on the bench press and your idea of a good time is get on the treadmill. Like, no, especially this morning was leg day and I had to get up at 3 to eat just so I could be there before because I got to have my mask on and be able to service people. And I'm like already in my head before I'm even out of bed rationalizing if I'm going to squat. And I'm like, no, it's on the plan. All you got to do is follow it. Simple, right?
Right.
I'm like in my head, well, what if you squat later? And what if you do something else? And does your back hurt? Your back? And it's like, nah, it's a commitment, right? So what you're talking about is using the leverage emotionally for something that you want. And I think that that's so misconstrued. You might even see this, Quinton, with your youth or your seniors or your experience where people have something that they're going after, but they haven't told themselves. And they really don't know at the conscious level why it's important. So at the end of the day, when that filters to the back of the mind and they have all of these emotions about, self-pity and being sore and being tired, and it's not fair because my friend gets to go out and have fun and I got to stay home and go to bed so I can get up in the morning and eat more, It's like that stuff, you got to have a reason because it's not a matter of if you'll quit. It's just a matter of when, because it's mindless suffering, right? I love that you pointed out the lifestyle because you want to get better, because without that true, authentic passion, it cannot happen, whether you want to be a bodybuilder or not, whether you want to lose 10 pounds or 100 pounds, whether you want to get off the blood pressure medication or an injury. Have you ever had an injury, Quinton, that you've had to come back from and it's taken a lot of mind and heart power in order to not self-loathe and feel sorry for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I've not through lifting weights, but my sophomore year in high school, I broke my right fibula and tibia. You know what I mean? Playing football and stuff. So that's a process. But thankfully, I think a lot has to do with the way that I train and things like that. Up to this point, there's been no injuries, and that's something too. Just quickly, because I know you want to transition out of this, but one thing I think that I've learned, I'll be 33 in July, but one thing that I've learned, Nick, in terms of injury prevention, when we're younger, we kind of go into the gym and there's not really any warming up. We might do one quote unquote warm up set, on an incline dumbbell bench, and then we're going, balls to the wall, right? Hit style or whatever. Well, if you continue to train that way, I think that could really lead to some severe injuries. So I nowadays I really focus on my warm up. I really focus on the days that I'm not lifting weights, the static stretching and just getting that blood flowing. So that's something I think is important for people that might be listening to this, that have an interest in training, or they're in kind of bodybuilding, all that, and they're a little bit younger. Is that really take those steps, those preventative steps, to keep your body as healthy as possible. Because I really believe that bodybuilding, the lifestyle of bodybuilding, is a very, very, very healthy lifestyle. But we just need to be very diligent. We need to be very focused. We need to be very intentional in terms of how we live out that bodybuilding lifestyle.
It's awesome that you took so much of an emphasis on that. And I think where I heard this from was a bodybuilder named Ben Pikowski, who is no longer a bodybuilder, but, well, I take that back. He's forever a bodybuilder, but he no longer competes in the IFBB at the Olympia level. But,
right. Yep.
He had said something, and I believe in a podcast, it might have been his podcast or another one, where he talked about sympathetic and parasympathetic days. I think that this is so important. I wish that I had kind of heard this from a lot of those people that I followed as athletes, because we all know the rest day, right? But we also all know the burden of the rest day, where it's like, oh, I can't go to the gym, and I'm bored, and maybe I'll go do something. Well, that big difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic is that he's like, there's no such thing as an off day. He's like I don't take off days. And so when I first heard that, I was like, I don't think that that's smart, because, clearly experimental medical research has said that, we should not be balls to the wall all the time. But I think what was such a mind shift for me as an athlete, and again, this is, like I said, when I was much older, but I wish I knew when I was in my early 20s, was I have parasympathetic days. And again, being in psychology, I understand the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic. But I'll get my massage, I'll get fascia stretched, I'll do my yoga, my Pilates, I'll do the hot cold tubs, the contrast therapy, the Mark Pro, whatever the different multiplicable or multitude of different resources out there. He engages in those to bring up his body, and for the understanding the elimination of the inflammation and that inflammatory response and how that can help. And so I think that it's incredible, and thanks for definitely bringing that up, Quinton. So I want to have the opportunity to dig into a couple more things before
for sure
that. And I think we have this conversation about podcasting. And again, as a fitness evangelist, I know that fitness is not the exclusive answer, but it's pretty doggone important.
Absolutely.
And you've done the same thing in being able to devote your life, not just having a platform for communication, like people like myself to come and story tell. What was your incentive to start the 127 Fit podcast, and why have you done so many episodes of it, even being in Iowa and going out there and connecting with different people? Where is your ambition when it comes to having a platform to communicate with people?
Yeah, and I really appreciate you. I appreciate you, Nick, giving me the opportunity to talk about this, because this is something else I've become very passionate about, right? So just quickly, the whole beginning of the whole me having my own podcast, it'll be 2 years this July that I started the 127 Fit podcast. I kind of came on the scene. I'm like, I was listening to all these different podcasts and I was learning so much. I was like, whoa, like this is literally, I could be meal prepping. I can be doing cardio. I can be driving. I can be basically doing anything in my life, and I can be listening to podcasts and I can be learning. So I don't like to waste time. Time is valuable. Time is precious. So if I can kill, quote unquote, 2 birds with 1 stone, I try to do that in my life. So I was getting so much value. And then, I like to share my thoughts. I'm a passionate, intense guy, right? And I feel like I'm a pretty good communicator and orator and all that. I was like, you know what? I could do this. And I think I could do a pretty good job, right? So I was like, you listen to all the podcasts that, are over, Skype and Zoom like we're doing, which, this is completely cool. But for me, there's a lot more variables that can go wrong in terms of like, you got to have an internet connection, all that. And a lot of times the internet connection sucks and, the sound sucks. And I was like, you know what? My podcast is going to be in person because that basically eliminates all variables that could go wrong to have an awesome podcast. And if I'm going to invest the time and the energy and the money and the effort into producing something, I want it to be the best that I can make it to be. So I'm out in Colorado and I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do a fitness in-person podcast, there's absolutely no better place than the state of Colorado to find fitness people that are like-minded like myself, that are passionate about fitness, that'll be willing to share and things of that nature. There's no better place than Colorado. So I had a laptop from my first school that I taught at in Colorado Springs. I bought myself a Snowball blue mic that I still use to this day. And, I reached out to somebody, a young lady that's in Colorado Springs. She has her own massage therapy practice. I reached out to her. She was my first guest. We podcasted in the science room at the school there in Colorado Springs. And kind of as they say, the rest is history. Now, what I really want to touch on is that, I've had a personal transformation, Nick, through podcasting. It kind of goes back to what I referred to earlier. If I'm willing to listen, as human beings are willing to listen, that's how we learn. If you and I are always talking, we're not listening and we can't learn. So just like I referred to earlier, training the seniors, as I am open to teach them, but in turn have them teach me as I'm listening, there's learning happening. There's growth that's going to happen for me. So one of the biggest transformations in my life has been learning the power and the importance in the human experience in terms of listening. I like to say we need to shut up and we need to listen, because when we listen, we learn. When we learn, we can apply, we can grow, we can mature, and really fully step into who God created us to be. So podcasting has forced me to listen to other people's stories. So my whole podcast, what I tell people when I reach out to them is the 127 Fit podcast is a platform for people to share their story so that those who listen would be positively impacted. I firmly believe in the power of humans telling their story. As we look at human history, like the Native American culture, very important human information has been passed on through, through the spoken word, specifically through storytelling, right? And so as I share my story, and as you share your story, somebody is going to listen to our stories. And at some point, if not at all points, when you share your story, they're going to be like, hey, Nick shared his story on the 127 Fit podcast. And when he was talking about A, B, and C, that's something that I'm going through right now. He went through it. That's kind of how he, experienced the breakthrough in his life in A, B, and C. Let me try to apply that in my life, and then they experience that breakthrough. There's that positive impact in another human being's life. So storytelling has been very integral, and it will continue to be throughout human history in terms of passing on important information. And it is just so powerful. It is so important for us as human beings. no matter if we think our story is amazing or it sucks or whatever all that is, be open and willing if the opportunity is presented. And that opportunity through social media and just through all of the technology we have, that opportunity is always there. There's no excuse for any of us not to share our story. But I really want to encourage people to share their life story, because other human beings are going to listen and they can be positively impacted. They can be uplifted through your story. Again, it doesn't matter how great or how horrible, whatever you think about your story, you share your story and see people positively impacted. So the 127 Fit podcast, it's this platform for human beings to share their story so that others can be positively impacted, and again, it's taught me to shut up and to listen. And it's really opened up my heart, Nick, to be a lot more, I would say, understanding, a lot more gracious, a lot more loving towards human beings. So growing up in what I would call, religion, all right, and experiencing that, there can be just a lot of, you can get very dogmatic. You can get very hypocritical and judgmental. And I've had to work through all of that in my own personal life experience. But when I sit in front of somebody in person, okay, it's different in person. You know this because you're on my podcast. It's just different. Zoom and all this stuff, it's great. Thank God for this technology, especially during this pandemic. But when you step into a room with another human being, and I get to look you in the eyes and you look me in the eyes, I get to feel your energy, you get to feel my energy, we get to just experience each other. And as you begin to open up and loosen up, as I create this safe environment for you and all my guests, and they begin to share their heart, they just get to pour out their emotions, man. There's something special and powerful that I gain from that the person sharing their story gains, and the people listening, they also get to gain and experience that as well. So I've learned so much in terms of just shutting up and listening. I've learned that, you know what, I can have a conversation with you, Nick, or I can listen to you, Nick, and your story, and I'm not going to agree with everything that you say. And guess what? That's okay, Quinton. It's okay, Q. You don't have to agree with everybody on everything. That is part of the human experience. So I've gained so much just grace and love and understanding and all of those beautiful things in terms of other human beings. It's really been a humbling experience. And, I just, I can't believe through such a simple medium, a laptop, a microphone, and two human beings, I can't believe through such a simple medium, through such a simple experience, Nick, there's just so much opportunity to learn and just really give back to, other human beings.
I love it. I love the passion, man. You can see that if people don't know what passion is, I don't think you need to look up the definition. You can just see it in your expression from the tonality, the words you speak, and definitely the energy. So I love it, man. I love your message. We're almost out of time. I want to have the opportunity to definitely ask my last question. But before I do that, I want to be able to let people know, how can people come out and connect not only with you on social media platforms and the many, whether they want to learn how to channel their voice and be able to share their story, but also how can they connect with you and the many, many interviews you've done with the other influencers and the art of storytelling on your 127 Fit podcast.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to share this, Nick. So the best way to reach out to me is on Instagram. I always tell people Instagram is my jam. So it's at 127 Fit. So you just go to Instagram at 127 Fit. You got the my podcast logo is kind of the icon logo, and you can kind of scroll through, see all my pictures with all of my guests and things like that. And then the podcast, the 127 Fit podcast, literally all podcast platforms. Just type in 127 Fit. You'll see my logo. It's a little microphone with some trees and the mountains as the backdrop. It says 127 Fit. Fitness Thoughts Life. It's iTunes, YouTube, all the platforms. Type it in, 127 Fit podcast, and it'll pop up. So Instagram at 127 Fit, all major podcast platforms, 127 Fit, and you will find me. And anybody, please, I know that, the times that we're living in right now, there's a lot of people that are struggling. And if you are struggling, if you need somebody to talk to, if you need somebody just to kind of just, listen to your story, what you're going through, if you have fitness questions, life questions, whatever it is, faith questions, don't ever hesitate, to send me a message, to reach out. I'm an open book. I love connecting with other human beings.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the invitation and for being so authentic and so transparent with your message, Quinton, and really, really inspiring stuff with what you're doing, not just in your message, not just with your faith, and especially not just with the people that you're working with on the day-to-day, but especially with the lives that you're touching through your message and your platform. So asking my last question here, if you had a stage, world stage, and the attention of every single person on the face of this planet living was listening or watching you for 1 minute, what would your message be to the world?
Love this. So my message to the world, first of all, I want every person that will ever listen to this to understand, no matter what you are going through in this moment, I want you to know that you are loved. I want you to know that you are loved. And the second part of that message is that your life is in your hands. You are loved. And once you understand that you are loved, I want you to understand that your life is in your hands. Your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, your destiny is in your hands. It's yours for the taking. Don't allow somebody else, to alter, the direction that you're supposed to take your life. You step into your life. You take your life into your hands and walk in that purpose, in that calling, in that destiny that God has created you for.
Wonderful. It's an incredible answer. Thank you so much, Quinton, for your time, for the very transparent message, for opening up about your life and the different avenues on how you were able to not only cultivate passion but step into it, and really giving us a word on the gratification, but more importantly with lifestyle and how you're able to take yourself through anything and to not be fearful. It's definitely passion. So definitely a word for everybody. And by all means, man, I am beyond grateful for you taking the time to connect with me today.
And I just want to thank you, Nick, for the opportunity to come onto your podcast. I never got into podcasting to be on people's podcasts. It's happened a couple of times, but I'm always thankful. I'm always grateful. I'm always honored when people reach out to me and invite me onto their podcast. Because again, I believe in the power of this medium, and I just want to continue. I just want to say, just continue to do your thing, continue to podcast, continue to share your story, continue to provide that platform for other people to share their stories. And I really appreciate what you're doing. Kind of as you say, as a fitness evangelist. So thank you, and continue on.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, everyone. Sure. I highly recommend you going and checking out the 127 Fit podcast, and also connecting with 127 Fit on Instagram. Quinton is definitely somebody that you're going to be able to, that would definitely be a resource of whatever you're doing in your life. And any questions, I can assure you, he'd be more than happy when he has the time to definitely connect with you and give you a word, advice, pray for you, whatever it actually is. And so incorporate these message. Don't let this just be spiritual entertainment or aesthetic sound. Take the information and see, most importantly, how it is applicable to you. being able to support the NattFitness method, we would more than beyond appreciate a subscription. You guys can type us in on YouTube under the NattFitness. That's one word, NATT Fitness channel. And definitely give a subscribe. You guys will get updates on not just the podcast, but other videos that I release to ultimately help battle against disease and help people lead the lives they want to live. In addition to that, you guys can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play Music. Make sure you guys definitely rate, review us, and we would more than appreciate that. This has been a message from Quinton Varce and yours truly, Nicholas Now, on the NattFitness method. Until next time, my friends, we are signing off.